Hey friends, it's Brenda. It's been forever since I've been on YouTube, so let me tell you what I'm up to now. I'm determined to build Blue Ridge Cottage Court in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley, and I'd like you to follow along here, dive deeper in my Substack, Cottage Court Chronicles. Hey, please subscribe below if you are already a subscriber. Thank you so much, and wow, yes, I am changing directions, and I'm coming at you from Uruguay. I'm staying at this lovely little apartment in Barra in Uruguay. This is day 11. I'll be headed back to California in 2 days. And let me tell you about what I'm doing here. So I have been, like many of you, increasingly discouraged by what I see happening at home in the United States. And for many of us, this is the decisions we make in life are a combination of, what makes sense practically. Get out that spreadsheet, do the pros and cons, but also what does it feel like from the heart? And so for me, I wanted to see if Uruguay might be a place for me to relocate. So a couple of things have happened over the summer. A big one is that I was injured at work and ended up having surgery on my arm. So both forearm bones were broken, the elbow was dislocated, and it hasn't been a pretty scene. So it required surgery. For me, because I was injured at work, that meant that workers' comp paid for it. Now, I have my own private insurance, but as a sociologist, as a researcher, I know that the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States is medical expenses, even for people who have insurance. And I began to think of what would have happened if I had fallen on my own time and had to use my own insurance. And is this a six-figure bill? Probably. And is that what I want to do? Having to worry about a health problem that takes away all of the money, all of my retirement funds that I've worked so hard to save over decades. And the answer was, no, this is insane to stay in a country where people have to have a GoFundMe page when they have an illness. It's inhumane. And then throw in all of the other things that are going on politically. My values, the environment, justice, humanity, diversity, equality, fairness, equitable. All of these values are being undermined. I don't recognize the country in which I was born anymore. And I know that many of you feel exactly the same way, especially watching the East Wing of the White House come tumbling down. One person has a whim and boom, it's gone. That's not the country I want to live in. A country that allows masked people to raid other people's homes and take them off the streets, disappearances, extrajudicial executions of people in fishing boats. It disturbs me to a great extent. And so it's like, you know what? I want to start checking out another country and see if this is a good fit for me. Why Uruguay? Did a lot of research. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. This is a very progressive, very democratic country in South America. It's along the Atlantic coast. It's not well known. It's quiet. Quiet sounds sort of nice right now. In fact, since this is day 11, I'll tell you what I'm doing a lot here is sleeping. I just find that it's been so exhausting living in the United States and dealing with that constant pressure and stress of what's going to happen today, that being away from it, having the distance, no TV, no radio, nothing. I check in to see what's going on, but it's been peaceful. So there's a real spreadsheet reason for selecting Uruguay. It's got universal health care. So for $100 to $200 a month, I am completely covered. I'm not going to have six-figure bills from seeing the doctor. It's got good medical care. It has progressive policies. It welcomes people into its country. And I'm going to tell you what, this place is booming. It is booming from one end to the other end. There's a lot of development. The old sidewalks are being replaced with a large flat sidewalks with accessible ramps. Older buildings are being renovated. There's quite a bit of new construction. So it's definitely a place to check out. So this is a case, though, where on the spreadsheet, everything checks the boxes. But honestly, upon my arrival here, within 24 hours, I was exhausted. I thought I'm going to give this place some time. But in my heart, I already knew I wasn't going to do it. This is a hard lift, especially for a single person who does not speak Spanish. Their dialect is Rio Platense Spanish. And so I've been bumbling around and stumbling around and managing to get buses, and people have been very friendly. I feel safe. But a large part of it for me is the distance. From LAX, it was 8.5-hour flight to Lima, Peru, 2-hour layover, 4.5 flight to Montevideo in Uruguay. And it's a long ways to be away from family. So that's been one of the factors. The language is another factor. And I'm going to be very honest with you. I always am. But this year, 2025, has been particularly difficult. I have felt degrees of loneliness that have lasted for months. It started in Utah, where I had took a job as an ATV guide outside Bryce Canyon National Park. Sounds very romantic, but in fact, it was a lot of long hours and low wages. And I thought I could build community anywhere, and I can't. I couldn't there. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't gossip. I call people on their racist and sexist crap. Okay, I won't stop doing that. And so I was an outsider. And so when I injured my arm, and it's like I'm all alone. Nobody's here to help me. I was very lonely. And then in August, I went to Bosque del Apache National Wildlife Refuge. I volunteered there, even though my arm was in a brace. And that's the quiet season. It's August, September, October. They don't start getting more visitors and more action until the migration in later in November and December. So that was a very quiet place. And again, I felt lonely. And so now I do November, went back to my RV co-op, and I have community there. I absolutely do. But in thinking about moving to Uruguay, the language barriers, the cultural differences, here I have spent days in silence. I have walked down the cobblestone streets and had tears kind of in the back of my eyes, just like, what am I doing here? And I knew, even though there's a great, wonderful community of immigrants from America, from Canada, from other places, I knew that I would be struggling with loneliness for months and months and months while I learned the language, while I learned the culture. And it's like, I don't know that I can do this, especially alone. And the distance from family and friends. So I decided that instead of Uruguay being the place that I am going to move to, I'm going to keep it in the back of my mind as a backup. The policies are really great. If you have to emigrate here, if you have to move here fast, you can. You can do most of what you need to do to establish residency once you're here. You can get your pets in pretty easily. It's a more laid-back community, so definitely it stays on my list as potential should America move further into a dictatorship and we can't bring our government back. So that's the way I've looked at this. So then the question is, what comes next? And I've been thinking more and more. I sat in the hotel room in Colonial del Sacramento and I'm like, I set up a lot of things in case I need to flee America. But what do I really want? What do I want? And what I want is community. And I have that to a great degree in my California RV co-op. But I'm kind of tired of RVing. I've been doing this for 5.5 years. I'd like to get off the road. I'd like to, maybe have a smaller house, not necessarily a tiny house, but a smaller house. And I've traveled, from one end of the country to another several times. Beautiful, beautiful countryside. But it's like, where do I want to live? I'm not a desert person, so being in Southern California in the long term is probably not a great choice for me. And I kept thinking about where have I always sort of found my sanctuary, my refuge, and it really is in Virginia. I've lived in Virginia for almost 20 years, and I loved hiking. I loved going into the Shenandoah Valley and the Blue Ridge Mountains, and the beauty there is astounding. So I thought, well, you know what? What if I go back to Virginia and find home somewhere in the Shenandoah Valley? I can bike, I can hike, I can rejoin the Virginia Master Naturalists, I can be more active. And then something happened in flipping a switch where I thought, rather than me joining a community, becoming part of a community where, I might have to deal, I will have to deal with people who think what's happening in America is just fine and dandy. And look at those signs come up every election cycle. Why don't I build my own community? Why don't I build the community based on the values that I believe in and that I know will bring in other people with those values of equality and justice and freedom and rights and feminism and just, empower us. So we're in a nice, safe, closed area where, we can express ourselves, we can look out for each other. So I sat, worked on AI, and I said, okay, this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at basically a community of friends. How do I set up we're independent, we want our own place, but we want a common area. And the answer came back, cottage court. And I'm going to tell you what, I'd never heard of cottage court. And now that I've started to research it, it sounds really perfect. There are challenges ahead of me in how I am doing this. In particular, I'm not a developer. I'm not a real estate expert, but I am a sociologist. I am a researcher. I am a planner. I am an organizer. I have contacts. I know how to build contacts. I can get this done. So I've got 2 friends so far who are interested in joining me. And we've created a name for this great little place called Blue Ridge Cottage Court. So Uruguay, it has not been a waste of time. It has been an awakening. I had called this a scouting trip. It has become a clarity trip. So in the next video, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my vision, what this cottage court would look like. And I'm inviting you to follow along here and on my Substack to see, how this develops. What are the resources? What are the mistakes I'm going to make? Because I am going to make mistakes. And if this is of any interest to you, I invite you to reach out and let's see how we can create our own little communities where we look out for each other. This is the way to grow old, not in an isolated suburban home or in an anonymous big city. So, hey, come along and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you in a bit.